reported by NHK at reactor number 3. Do we still have Jim Walsh with us? If we do, Jim, if you could just I know you went over it once, but what would explain a blast at reactor number 3 and smoke out of reactor number 1?
I can speak to the second one better than I can speak to the first. Essentially what may have happened at unit number 3, and again, we don't know, but this is something that government officials publicly warned about earlier in the day, Cooper. And it's what we saw at unit number 1 yesterday, which was you have a buildup of hydrogen, it ignites, and then blows off, explodes. And in the case of unit number 1 yesterday, it didn't do so inside the reactor, it did so in the reactor building. So you had the concrete, which is essentially the concrete housing the reactor, collapse, and then you saw a big cloud of dust. But the reactor itself was not compromised, and the containment vessel was not compromised. So it was, not a welcome event, but it wasn't something that was terrible. This is something Japanese officials were worrying about. They were sort of, making a devil's bargain. Do you vent some of this pressure, some of the vapor? You have to, so you don't have something horrible happen. But if you do that, then you run other risks, and this was one of the other risks. Now, as to unit number 1, if there's new smoke at unit number 1, I think that's open to speculation. I can't comment on what might be causing that, but clearly that's already a compromised plant. Earlier in the day, we had gotten good news about unit number 1, that they had made progress in flooding it with seawater. Even though the seawater was going to, kill the plant forever, it at least had the positive effect of cooling it down. So people were feeling pretty good about unit 1 through the course of the day. And if there's smoke there, it's unclear what that would mean.
Jim, Stan Grant is joining us from Tokyo with more on what's going on with the reactor. Stan, what are you hearing?
Yeah, we're just hearing what Jim has largely sketched to you there, Anderson. We can't speak to what this smoke may be from reactor number 1, although there was a hydrogen explosion there just the other day. And as Jim pointed out, this has been expected. They were expecting this build-up of hydrogen at reactor number 3 to ignite. And Jim also made the very salient point there that when there was the explosion just the other day at reactor number 1, it was not in the reactor itself, it was in the outer wall containing the reactor. And that's what authorities, officials here have been saying for some days now. They're expecting a hydrogen explosion at reactor 3, but in the outer casing, in the wall that holds the reactor itself. Interestingly too, the other day when that explosion happened and when they were venting steam from the reactor, that's when some of the radiation seeped into the atmosphere. Of course, those radiation levels were higher than normal, but once again, authorities were very keen to stress that they were not at a level that was going to be physically harmful. But it did lead to expanding that exclusion zone out to the 12, 13 miles, 20 kilometers that it currently is. So yes, a hydrogen explosion, that's what's being reported in Japanese media right now at reactor number 3, but as we say, expected to be in the building housing that reactor. Anderson?
Stan, I'm also getting an update right now from Japan's Meteorological Society, which is apparently now saying that the threat of some sort of tsunami wave has now dissipated, that is no longer a threat. I'm not sure if Sanjay is hearing that from the people that he's been hearing from the ground. We'll try to check in with him in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and our coverage continues live in a moment from Japan.
Song by Paul Beckman, Paul Rainbow song, created March 13th, 2011, using F, G7, C, and A minor 7. The song is going to be called Apparently the Threat Has Dissipated of Another Tsunami. tsunami. While the threat has dissipated. Another tsunami. That threat has dissipated now. I guess it'd have to be a really, really strong earthquake, and then you'd feel that tsunami coming again. But it's too weak now. On the other hand, you got a nuclear power plant which just had an explosion. You'd think that that would mean the worst, but they say the containment wall built around the plant is supposed to take the brunt of it, so it won't